This is Top Accolade Global News Updates. I am Soy Bifa Jackridge. Haiti's unelected Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, will step down once the transition council and temporary replacements have been appointed, he said on Monday after leading the Caribbean country since the 2021 assassination of its last president. Armed gangs massively grew their wealth, influence and territory under his administration, prompting Henry to travel to Kenya in late February to secure its support for a United Nations-backed security mission to help police. However, the conflict dramatically escalated in his absence and left the 74-year-old neurosurgeon stranded in the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico while regional leaders call for a swift transition. The government that I am leading will resign immediately after the installation of a transition council, Henry said in a late-night video address. I want to thank the Haitian people for the opportunity I had been granted. Videos distributed on Haitian social media appeared to show celebrations in the street, with people dancing to music in a party atmosphere and fireworks launched into the night sky. A senior U.S. official said Henry was free to remain in Puerto Rico or travel elsewhere, though security in Haiti would need to improve for him to feel comfortable returning home. The official said the resignation had been decided on Friday. At least two Ukraine-based army groups purporting to be made up of Russians opposed to the Kremlin launched an incursion across Russia's western border on Tuesday, according to their social media pages. The Freedom of Russia Legion and the Serbian Battalion both announced on their Telegram pages that they had launched attacks into Russia from Ukraine. We will take our land from the regime centimeter by centimeter, the Freedom of Russian Legion said in its Telegram post. Russian officials could not be immediately reached for comment on the claims on Tuesday. In the past, Russian officials have cast the groups as puppets of the Ukraine military and U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, which Moscow says is trying to foment chaos in Russia. Andriy Yusov, a spokesperson for Ukraine's military intelligence, told Ukraine's 24th channel the groups were conducting the operation on Russian territory independently of Ukraine. Yusov said a third group, the Russian Volunteer Corps, was also participating in the operation. The Legion's post appeared to refer to the upcoming Russian election, which will take place this weekend. The Freedom of Russia Legion and the Russian Volunteer Corps have previously claimed responsibility for other cross-border raids into Russia from Ukraine. Sporadic protests have erupted in India against a citizenship law that has been criticized for discriminating against Muslims after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government implemented the legislation just days before a general election is announced. Protests broke out in the eastern state of Assam and the southern state of Tamil Nadu late on Monday evening after the implementation was announced. Authorities said there were no reports of damage or any clashes with security forces. Modi's Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party (BJP) government framed rules on Monday to implement the Citizenship Amendment Act (CAA), making it easy for non-Muslim refugees from three Muslim-majority South Asian nations to get Indian citizenship. The enactment of the law in 2019 had led to massive protests and sectarian violence in which scores were killed, forcing the government to delay its implementation. In Chennai, Tamil Nadu's capital, protesters took out a candlelight march on Monday and shouted slogans against the law. In Assam, protesters burnt copies of the law and shouted slogans on Monday night, and local opposition parties have called for a statewide strike on Tuesday. Many oppose the CAA in Assam as they fear it can increase migration from neighboring Muslim Bangladesh, a long-standing flashpoint that has polarized the state for decades. The Communist Party of India, which rules the southern state of Kerala, has also called for statewide protests on Tuesday. Right activists and Muslims groups says the law, combined with a proposed national register of citizens, can discriminate against India's 200 million Muslims, the world's third largest Muslim population. Some fear the government might remove the citizenship of Muslim without documents in some border states. The government denies it is anti-Muslim and say the law is needed to help minorities facing persecutions in Muslim majority nations. British wages, excluding bonuses, grew at their slowest pace since October 2022 during the 3 months to the end of January, while the unemployment rate edged up unexpectedly. According to data, which may slightly ease the Bank of England's inflation worries, regular wage growth dropped to 6.1% in the 3 months to January from 6.2% in the final quarter of 2023. The Office for National Statistics said economists had expected another reading of 6.2%. The unemployment rate rose to 3.9% from 3.8%, reversing a dip in the final quarter of last year, although the ONS is still in the process of overhauling its survey of households. Sterling weakened against the US dollar and euro immediately after the labor market data was published. On Monday, the ONS said there was greater uncertainty than usual about the unemployment rate, equivalent to around 0.1 percentage point in either direction, due to a problem with analyzing labor data from Northern Ireland. The BOE has identified wage growth and service price inflation as the two most important indicators for whether underlying inflation pressure are easing enough for it to cut interest rates. Wage growth is running at roughly double its rate before the COVID-19 pandemic, when inflation was close to the 2% target. While some top BOE officials expect wage growth to drift lower as headline inflation falls, others fear that labor shortages since the pandemic will make a slow process. Autopilot and full self-driving technology and 9 other assisted driving systems marketed by major automaker receiving poor rating from the US. Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, in a new study released on Tuesday, the IIHS, a safety research arm of the industrial industry, a safety research arm of the insurance industry, also said there is no evidence that autopilot or other assisted driving systems have real-world safety benefits based on crash data. The comparison, there is evidence that automatic and emergency braking systems cut rear-end collisions by 50% and cut incidents of a vehicle hitting a pedestrian by 30%, he said. Telsa and its chief executive, Elon Musk, have said that a Telsa operating with autopilot engaged it about 10 times safer than the US average and 5 times safer than the Telsa without the technology enabled. Federal regulators are investigating nearly 1,000 accidents in which Telsa's autopilot was in use. A civil case scheduled to go to trial next week in California will be the latest test of Telsa's strategy of blaming crashes on drivers who fail to heed the EV makers' warning to pay attention to the road when autopilot or full self-driving technology are engaged. The IIHS study rated 14 assisted driving systems from 9 automakers against standard it's developed. The IIHS study rated 14 assisted driving systems from 9 automakers against standards it's developed. The U.S. National Highways Traffic Safety Administration has no formal standards governing advanced driver assistance systems, or ADAS in industry terminology. That is the size of Top Accolade Global News Updates. You can follow us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Happy Tuesday.